Good morning. August 16th, 2025. Mark Kulak from Live, and I'm on my vacation here out in California. I don't usually use my stabilizer, my DJI, but I'm using it today. It's not perfectly level. I'm not an expert on it, so you're gonna have to deal with it, but it will give you the benefit of being able to watch this a little bit smoother. And as I lower it down here to my laptop, which is in front of me, what we've been doing, I should say what I've been doing here, and it's admittedly quite terrifying what I've been able to accomplish with just a couple of hours a day of work. I mean, as strange as it sounds, I've done this stuff so much that I almost feel unbalanced if I don't get at least a little bit of research and thinking time every day. I know maybe it's defeating the purposes of the vacation, but look, I get antsy. So it's amazing how much I've been able to accomplish today. If I get distracted at any one point by a attractive Walker buyer, you'll just have to excuse me. I am a man after all. But a faithful man and a very lucky man nonetheless. So this is building on the theme which I started a couple of days ago, and that is highlighting how, and we'll look at the chart in a minute. Let's enjoy the ocean right now. Much of what we see from Trump derangement syndrome has been engineered. Now, some people will say that everything about the Trump administration, the first one anyways, from the election to the victory to what happened afterwards, it was 100% choreographed. I'm still not sure about that. It's possible. I'm not stating that I guarantee that it wasn't. But I still see enough to suggest that the election victory of Donald Trump in 2016 and the presidency, which started in 2017, it was the aspiration of some, of course, Steve Bannon in particular, and Donald Trump, of course. But I think it was unexpected by most. Okay, I think most people thought that Steve Bannon couldn't do it. And I think it does speak to, in spite of relatively biased polling and potentially rigged elections or extra votes that are baked in, that Trump was able to win in 2016. I think it speaks to at least up until then, the political disposition of the country. I think Steve Bannon actually saw it as a personal challenge to see if he could do what Michael Moore and others did on the political left. And I think he poured his soul into it, and I think he proved himself right. And I think Steve Bannon was viewed as a very different person after that. I think up until then, people thought he was, moderately successful, a little bit of a wannabe. Steve Bannon didn't have much success with Sarah Palin. He tried, he made the movies, but he didn't have a whole lot of success. And it is the Steve Bannon, and it's seeing that there are some people who have just been loosely in this Steve Bannon orbit, not apparently directly anyways, but as we'll see, there is a pretty thick connection here, which just makes me think that at least after the 2016 election and starting 2017, what we saw was Trump derangement syndrome, and then people making bank and becoming popular, highlighting Trump derangement syndrome. Most of these people already knew each other for a long time. And even up until today, even the people that were involved in saying things, supporting the narrative during COVID, these are actors and actresses and musicians and entertainers and influencers. don't like that word, but I don't know what other word to use. They go back a long way. So let's start off by looking at this list. Okay, let's look at this list. So far we have Kathy Griffin, Dr. Drew, Jimmy Kimmel, Adam Carolla, Harvey Weinstein, Steve Bannon, Doug Stanhope. Doug Stanhope said something that could just be a coincidence, but man, I don't know. I'm going to tell you what it is. I might even lead off with that. Joe Rogan, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, this whole act called The Groundlings, Roseanne, Barr, Larry David, producer, comedian, comic writer, Tucker Carlson, Bill Maher. I think Cheryl Hines should be on this as well. But I think that's implied by saying The Groundlings. Okay. So let's start off with Doug Stanhope. And I will warn you, there's going to be some cursing here, okay?
If the cigarette bothers you because you're envious, vote next time. How about that? Oh, yeah, every now and then, figure out what the fuck's going on in your community. No, you don't vote. You got shit to do. Leave it to old people with breathing problems who will never come here. This whole fucking generation is so unbelievably sad. If you're just getting to like partying age, you're fucked. There's nothing going on in this country anymore. It's done. Last call. It's a suck generation. It's the most boring fucking generation in the history of people. It's all dumbed down and watered. When's the last time you heard stories about rock and roll bands chucking TVs out of hotel windows or any of that shit that used to be fun? Like, there was fun in the world. Some of this is going to make me sound like a grumpy old fuck, and I am, but I have just cause. There's nothing.
So Doug Stanhope, he is a comedian. He was born in Massachusetts, Worcester, Massachusetts. Not too far from where I live right now, actually. He moved out to California late 1990s, early 2000s, and he became a professional comedian. He moved out to California with his mom, and he does not hold back. That he lives a life of alcohol consumption and I don't know about drug use. I don't think he has any problems with drug use, though. In fact, I know that in California, he is a big supporter of legalized marijuana laws. As you can see from this act, and this act is from 2006, he's wearing a shirt. Anyways, the shirt he has on is actually a picture of a Statue of Liberty, and it says Libertarian. Now, Doug Stanhope, as sort of a protest, maybe as a stunt, both, ran as a United States presidential candidate in the 2008 election as a Libertarian. I don't think he did very well, but he probably got a few votes. And he had a very interesting tagline for his presidential campaign in 2006. Nothing's balanced here. Here's his Wikipedia page. And it says down here, Stanhope announced his intention to seek election as the United States president in the 2008 election on the Libertarian Party ticket. And he added, quote, and you can read this in a 2006 article, okay? So this isn't history being rewritten. Quote, it seemed like a funny thing to do, but people are either amused or horrified at the idea of me representing their party, unquote. His focus was for, quote, and this is him, individual freedom, self-government, and you gotta zoom in on this, making America fun again. Now, could just be a coincidence. I'm sure people have said, let's make America safe again, or I'm sure other people have said something to that akin, but making America fun again. I just can't get over that. How close is that to make America great again? That's Doug Stanhope. That's a comedian. Now, this comedian, Doug Stanhope, has done some very interesting things in his career, but I think what I find, and in addition to that quote, of course, what I can't overlook is in the year 2000s, in 2003 and 2004, he joined this Comedy Central show called The Man Show. So The Man Show, let's read this together here. The Man Show is an American sketch comedy television show on Comedy Central that aired from 1999 to 2004. It was created by its two original co-hosts, Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel, and their executive producer, Daniel Kellison. Kellison, by the way, goes back to the David Letterman show. The pilot was originally paid for and pitched to ABC, as a television network in the United States, who declined to pick up the show. The Man Show simultaneously celebrated and lampooned the stereotypical loudish or ludish, not how to pronounce that, male perspective in a sexually charged, humorous light. The show consisted of a variety of pre-recorded comedy sketches and live in-studio events, usually requiring audience participation. The Man Show is a career breakthrough for Jimmy Kimmel. The Man Show was particularly well known for its buxom female models, the Juggy Dance Squad, who would dance in themed, revealing costumes at the opening of every show, in the aisles of the audience just before the Man Show went to commercial break, and during the end segment, quote, girls on trampolines. Now, let's see, if this show started in 1999, I'm in my mid-20s at the time, and although I wasn't a political person, I remember thinking that this show, I could never really put my finger on it, but it didn't seem right that men were being portrayed in this light. That, you know, men are just a bunch of pot-bellied dudes, you know, drink your beer, and, you know, women are supposed to just dress up and be all sexy for you and jump around on trampolines, and it just seems so childish. You know, it was actually, there's having fun, and then there's like, look, this isn't life, okay? This isn't even like life in a fun way. It sets a bad role models for other young men. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. However, I guess, you know, the world of media was trying to tell me that I should like it. I never watched it. I mean, I watched it a couple of times, but I didn't really find it funny. I just didn't find it funny at all. I didn't find it entertaining. I found it degrading to men and women alike. So, of course, the show was somewhat controversial. But after Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel, who were the stars in the original year, right? After that, future stars was Joe Rogan and Doug Stanhope, seasons 5 and 6. So Joe Rogan, you know, of course, Joe Rogan podcast, this is huge. Think of all the things that Joe Rogan has brought to the world in his podcast. And then Doug Stanhope. I don't know how close Joe Rogan and Doug Stanhope are now. But Doug Stanhope, Make America Fun Again, I just can't help but think that was heard by someone, and there was some weird chain reaction that might have actually propagated all the way up to the Donald Trump campaign. So knowing Adam Carolla, Jimmy Kimmel, of course we know Jimmy Kimmel is a huge part of the Trump derangement syndrome story. Let's look at this timeline now. So starting in 1978, keep in mind what we just talked about, okay? 1978, Kathy Griffin moves to Los Angeles. where she studied drama at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute and became a member of the improvisational comedy troupe The Groundlings. So there's this comedy act called The Groundlings here in the Los Angeles area. And then Griffin began her stand-up, solo stand-up, I guess, in the 1990s, and eventually found her way, supporting role on an NBC sitcom called Suddenly Susan. That's with Brooke Shields, 1996 to 2000. Now in 1993, this is Kathy Griffin's words. Maybe she's making this up a little bit, but let's just go with it, okay? She says she dated Quentin Tarantino, which led to the opportunity that she had in the movie Pulp Fiction. And I apologize for the typos here. Just have to roll with it. Kathy Griffin was very, very, very minor role, like 5 or 10 seconds in the movie Pulp Fiction. She was actually credited as herself, Kathy Griffin. Now, the movie Pulp Fiction contains several other people from this Groundlings act. I don't know whose idea it was to get them, but either way, they were in there, such as the Gimp and a few other roles. People we may not have known about are all part of that Groundlings group. And I think other people in that Groundlings group include people like maybe Kimmel and Adam Carolla himself. Just noteworthy. Now, the movie Pulp Fiction may never have come to pass if it wasn't for the reading of the script and the financial support of Harvey Weinstein. This is very, very important detail. So the production happens in 1993. The release of Pulp Fiction is in 1994. 1995, Kathy Griffin has a guest role on The Seinfeld Show. Now, Seinfeld is, written by Seinfeld and Larry David. Larry David, of course, goes on to be the main person, the main actor and writer of Curb Your Enthusiasm. And we know that Steve Bannon made many, many millions, as well as Larry David and Seinfeld, of course, on the movie on the series Seinfeld. So the release of the Kathy Griffin Seinfeld Show is in 1996, and I'm using this to show that, there's the odds of Kathy Griffin, Steve Bannon potentially knowing each other way before the 1999 Music Billboard Awards is very real. Now, in 1995, Adam Carolla provides boxing training to Jimmy Kimmel. That's when they meet. So Adam Carolla, Jimmy Kimmel, they met as far back as 95, 96. Carolla was working, he did a bunch of part-time jobs. One of them was a boxing trainer. Jimmy Kimmel had this stunt boxing act, and that's where they met, and eventually they became good, lifelong friends, I guess. 1995, this is also crazy, guys. You won't believe it. Adam Carolla, Dr. Drew, started it was originally just a radio show called Love Line. Started in 1994, 1995. Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew go all the way back to 1994, 1995. Keep that in mind for something I'm going to mention in a few minutes. Love Line included people like Kathy Griffin. So June 1998, Kathy Griffin is the main star on this Love Line show with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. I mean, these are the people that are in front of us over the last several years. Dr. Drew with his measured intelligence and reasonable position on the vaccine and COVID. Adam Carolla coming out with his pseudo, intellectual conservative podcast. Kathy Griffin and her TDS and her meltdowns. 1998, June, they're all together. Roseanne Barr, Kathy Griffin, they're together on a show, 1998, and they were introduced as old friends. Larry David, by the way, he did a show where he was the writer for Joy Behar in a show back in like 1989. Before you realize it, you're going to see that and I'm not going to go over all these people here, but almost the entire cast of The View is part of this network. The View that people love to say, oh, The View, they're having their meltdowns, they're upset about Trump. This is winning, make America great again. They're all part of the act. So then 1999, Jimmy Kimmel, Adam Carolla, The Man Show. And then there's this is what one of the many things that got this started. Then Kathy Griffin, Adam Carolla, they're the co-stars. They're the co-hosts of the Billboard Music Awards in 1999. Kathy Griffin says that's when she met Snoop Dogg. I think that's a load of crap. She was introduced to him beforehand somehow. at the very least by a few weeks. Matter of fact, she never would have met him if it wasn't for probably some combination of Tarantino, Steve Bannon, Harvey Weinstein, and or maybe one or two other people. Kathy Griffin was in her Eminem video in 2000. She said it was only because of Snoop Dogg. I don't think that's true. Eminem, as a friend of, I believe, becoming a dear friend of Quentin Tarantino, probably in 98, 99. I think that's what did it. Joe Rogan and Doug Stanhope, they joined the Man Show in 2003. Now, in 2005, we have evidence of the Steve Bannon and Harvey Weinstein connection, with Goldman Sachs funding going to the Weinstein Group. I seriously doubt that they met then. I think it goes back further than that. I just don't have those details fully tracked just yet. And there's a whole bunch of other shows I don't have on here just yet. I will eventually. The point here is that it was not just spontaneous, these people, coming out with their pro and anti-Trump rants. It was scripted. They're on a script. They're following a script. Some of them may be aware of how serious the lies are, and some of them obviously, or I should say possibly, are not, which makes it much easier to follow the script if you don't know exactly what the lies are or where the lies are. Roseanne Barr being on here. Roseanne Barr has been appearing on she's been with Dr. Drew. Roseanne Barr has been with Adam Carolla. Adam Carolla was on with the Tucker Carlson and Fox News. I mean, come on. This stuff is all scripted, and Roseanne Barr is now saying, of course they're all eating the babies. If you are a conservative in the United States of America, these people are being paid to get on television and to represent you. To the other half of the country, you, if you are a conservative, are the words of Roseanne Barr. You are the words of Bill Maher. You are the words of Harvey Weinstein or Steve Bannon or Joe Rogan, whoever else gets between you and them. If you don't talk to your neighbor, they will. Also, how you think of your neighbor, if you don't talk to them, is defined by who you see. If you wake up, if you watch social media in the morning, and if you see, I don't know, Tucker Carlson or someone else showing a clip of Kathy Griffin crying and being mad at Trump, you know why that's happening. I should say that is getting you to think that that's how the other half of the country is, and they're not. If you don't talk to your neighbor directly, then you have to guess what your neighbor is thinking by what is put in front of you every day. That is the role of Hollywood. That is the role that these people have. If you don't want to think for yourself, they'll tell you what you should be thinking for you. The Dr. Drew, and this is for my friend and collaborator in a lot of this stuff, Jonathan Cooey, PhD of Ginkgo Home Biological. He was invited to join this group called the Broken Science Group out here in California. I guess the roots maybe go back to 2022, but they started making videos in 2023. I know this Broken Science Initiative flew Jonathan Cooey out to California or Arizona for some of these meetings, some of these events. He was tickled. They never gave him a penny, though. Of course, that's the one thing he needs. He needs time and he needs funding. And they took away his time and they gave him no funding. Anyways, aside from their founder and their co-founder, Emily Knapp or Coop or something like that, you know who the two people that were doing videos initially on the Broken Science Group were? Dr. Drew Pinsky and Adam Carolla. I kid you not. Dr. Drew Pinsky and Adam Carolla are the two main voices, the two main faces of doing videos for the Broken Science Initiative. I kid you not. Kathy Griffin, Adam Carolla. I mean, the last thing I'll say is, I think it's pretty well known that Jeffrey Epstein, his last recorded interview was with Steve Bannon, and Jeffrey Epstein had a relationship of some business sorts with Harvey Weinstein. What you're going to see is Jeffrey Epstein is himself a construct made by people with Hollywood connections. Maybe he did some business, stock trading and whatever, but much of the cultural, the Whitney Webb or whatever interpretation of who Jeffrey Epstein is made by Hollywood. It is made to keep people busy. If people don't want to watch a show like mine or Jonathan Cooey's, a show where you have to think and maybe do a little bit of work and you're going to see things for the way they are and you're not going to see the salacious stuff, you are going to be assaulted with all the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And likewise, on the other side of the political spectrum, you will be defined by that. Media is out there to put the thoughts in your head that you're not willing to construct on your own. And it's there to make up for the relationships that you don't want to take the time to have. That's the role that these people have. Don't be mad at them. They're just doing a job. If none of these people on this list were born, there'd be another 20 people on this list who would be doing those jobs instead. It's not about them. It's really about you, and it's about me. So that's my quick show for the day. Hope this was helpful. Let's zoom out again. Look at what matters for a moment. Take care. God bless.